Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever judged someone too quickly, only to realize later that you were completely wrong? Maybe you thought someone was weak, but they turned out to be really strong. Or maybe you thought someone didn't know much, but they were actually the smartest person in the room. We've all been there, right? Well, today's story is about a group of bikers who made that mistake, in the worst way possible. But before we get started, let me know in the comments where are you watching from today? And if you love stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out. Now, let's begin. It was a warm and peaceful afternoon in the small town of Riverdale. The sun was shining, and a soft breeze moved through the trees. People walked along the sidewalks, some holding hands, others chatting with friends. A few sat at small outdoor cafes, sipping coffee and watching the world go by. Everything seemed normal. But something was about to happen. Something big. Lisa stepped out of her apartment and took a deep breath. She loved the fresh air. Even though she couldn't see the world, she could feel it, hear it, and smell it. The scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery filled her nose. She could hear birds chirping in the trees. A child laughed as he ran past her. Lisa was blind. She had lost her sight years ago in an accident. But that never stopped her from living her life. She was strong, independent, and determined. And she had someone by her side. Max wasn't just any dog. To most people, he was just a regular guide dog, helping Lisa find her way safely. But Lisa knew the truth. Max was different. Before he became her guide, Max had lived a very different life. He was a retired Navy SEAL K-9. He had been trained for years to handle dangerous missions. He had worked with some of the toughest soldiers in the world. He had saved lives. But now, he had a new mission: protect Lisa. Always. Lisa had a simple daily routine. Every afternoon, she walked to the park a few blocks away. She liked to sit on a bench, listen to the sounds of nature, and feel the breeze on her face. Max guided her carefully, making sure she avoided cracks in the sidewalk or any obstacles in her way. People in the neighborhood knew her. Some would say hello as she passed by. Others simply smiled. Lisa was used to doing things on her own. She didn't need anyone's pity. But not everyone understood that. As Lisa and Max walked toward the park, the sound of roaring engines filled the air. A group of loud, rough-looking bikers pulled up to a nearby gas station. Their motorcycles were big and covered in flames and skull designs. They wore black leather jackets, some with patches that said things like "Steel Fangs" and "No Mercy." People in the area watched nervously as the bikers parked their bikes. They laughed loudly, pushed each other around, and talked in deep, rough voices. Some people crossed the street to avoid them. Others hurried into stores, pretending not to notice. But Lisa couldn't see them. She only heard them. Max's ears perked up. He stood still for a moment, listening. He could sense something. He didn't trust those men. Something was wrong. Lisa gently touched Max's back. "It's okay, buddy," she said softly. "Let's go." Max obeyed, but he kept his ears alert, listening closely. The bikers noticed Lisa as she walked past the gas station. They saw the harness on Max and realized she was blind. One of the men, a tall guy with a thick beard and a black bandana, smirked. "Hey, look at this," he said, nudging his friend. "A blind lady walking all alone. Ain't that sad?" His friend, a heavy-set man with tattoos on his arms, laughed. "Yeah, man. Poor thing. She can't even see us." A third biker, younger and meaner looking, grinned. "I bet she don't even know if she's walking in the right direction." The men chuckled, finding their own jokes funny. Lisa kept walking, unaware that they were talking about her. But Max knew. And he didn't like it? Max's body tensed. His sharp senses told him these men were bad news. He could hear their cruel voices. He could smell the sweat and leather on them. He could tell they were up to no good. But he stayed calm, just like he had been trained to do. One of the bikers got an idea. A very bad idea. "Hey," he whispered to his friends. "What if we mess with her a little?" The others grinned. They thought it would be funny. So they stepped onto the sidewalk, standing right in Lisa's way. Lisa kept walking forward, unaware of the trouble ahead. Suddenly, Max stopped. Lisa frowned. "What is it, Max?" she asked. She reached down, gently patting his head. Max didn't move. His ears twitched. His nose sniffed the air. His eyes locked onto the men in front of them. Lisa knew Max well. If he stopped, there was a reason. She took a careful step forward and held onto Max's harness. He didn't move. Lisa's heart began to beat faster. Something was wrong. Then, she heard them. "Hey, lady," one of the bikers said. His voice was deep and rough. Too close. Lisa felt her stomach twist. She wasn't alone anymore. Max growled softly. It was quiet, but full of warning. Lisa knew that sound. Max was ready to protect her. But the bikers didn't take the warning seriously. "Relax, it's just a joke," one of them said, laughing. "We're just having a little fun." Lisa's grip on Max tightened. She could feel the tension in his body. And in that moment, she knew this wasn't just a joke. This was a test. A test Max was more than ready for. Lisa walked with confidence, her steps steady as she moved along the sidewalk. She had taken this route so many times before that she knew it by heart. The sounds, the smells, even the slight turns in the pavement, everything was familiar. Her fingers held tight to Max's harness, trusting him completely. Max walked beside her, always alert, always aware. To others, he looked like just another guide dog. But Lisa knew the truth. Max was more than a helper. He was a protector. Lisa's destination today was the local coffee shop. She loved the smell of fresh coffee, the soft music that played inside, and the warm, friendly voices of the workers who knew her by name. But today, something was different. Max knew it first. As they stopped at the crosswalk, waiting for the signal to change, Lisa felt Max's body tense up. His ears twitched. Then came the sound she knew well, a low, deep growl. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. Max didn't growl unless there was danger. She stayed still, listening. That's when she heard it, the roar of motorcycles. The loud engines, the screeching tires, and then, laughter. It wasn't friendly laughter. It was the kind that made people nervous. The kind that meant trouble. A group of bikers had just pulled up nearby. Lisa wasn't afraid of people. She had dealt with rude strangers before. But this felt different. The bikers weren't just being loud. They were watching her. She could feel it. Even without seeing their faces, she could sense their attention on her. Then, a voice called out. "Hey, sweetheart, need some help?" Lisa ignored it. "Don't engage. Just keep moving." She tightened her grip on Max's harness. He felt it too. His muscles were tense, his breathing steady but ready. But the bikers weren't done. "Come on, what's the matter? Can't see where you're going." Laughter exploded from the group. Lisa's jaw tightened. She had heard jokes like this before. Some people thought blindness made her weak. They thought it was funny to tease her. But Lisa wasn't weak. And she wasn't alone. Max didn't like this. His sharp mind, trained by years of military work, was already processing the situation. 6 men. Loud. Aggressive voices. 3 motorcycles. Close enough for a quick escape if they needed one. Lisa's heartbeat faster than normal. She was uncomfortable. Max stood still, his body slightly in front of Lisa, blocking her, protecting her. His sharp eyes locked onto the bikers. He wasn't just watching. He was analyzing. Would they try to touch Lisa? Would they get too close? Max was ready for every possibility. But he also knew one important rule: wait. Observe. Only act if necessary. Lisa took a deep breath. She knew Max wouldn't let anything happen to her. She wasn't afraid. But she was angry. "Excuse me," she said calmly, her voice strong. "I need to get by." The bikers chuckled. "Oh, we're just trying to be friendly," one of them said. His voice was rough, like someone who had smoked for years. Lisa ignored them and took a step forward. But then, one of the men stepped in front of her. Max moved instantly. A sharp bark broke through the air, making everyone stop. The laughter died. Max's growl was no longer quiet. It was deep and fierce, like a warning before a storm. Lisa could feel the energy change. Max wasn't playing around. One of the bikers, the tall man with the skull tattoo on his arm, scoffed. "Whoa there, puppy," he said. "Chill out." Lisa tightened her grip on Max's harness. She could feel his muscles, tight as steel, ready to react. The biker laughed again. "Hey, lady," he said, "you sure this dog knows what he's doing? He looks a little." Max snapped his teeth. "Not biting, just a warning." The biker stepped back. "Whoa. Okay, okay." Lisa felt a small sense of victory. "Good boy, Max." But the other bikers weren't done. One of them, the young one with wild blonde hair, muttered, "Bet she doesn't even know what's happening." Another laughed. "We should test her. See if she can find her way without the dog." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. What did that mean? Then she felt it. A hand grabbing Max's harness. In one swift movement, Max reacted. He spun, yanking the harness away, and lunged. Not to attack, to warn. A fierce bark erupted from his throat, his teeth just inches from the biker's arm. The man jumped back, his hands in the air. "Dude. What the heck?" Max stood firm, his body between Lisa and the bikers. His growl rumbled like thunder. Lisa's heart pounded. She hadn't seen it, but she had felt it. She knew Max had just stopped something bad. And she wasn't going to stick around for more. Lisa took a deep breath. Enough was enough. She straightened her back. Her voice was calm but strong. "Leave us alone." One of the bikers scoffed. "Or what?" Lisa didn't hesitate. She reached into her pocket and held up her phone. "Or I call the police." Silence. Lisa didn't need to see their faces to know they were rethinking their choices. Max was still growling, his body stiff and ready. Then, the skull tattoo biker laughed. "Let's go," he said, shaking his head. "She's not worth it." One by one, the bikers backed away. Lisa didn't move until she heard their motorcycles roar to life and fade into the distance. Only then did Max relax. Lisa exhaled and reached down, stroking Max's head. "Good boy," she whispered. Max wagged his tail, but his eyes stayed alert. He had done his job. And if those bikers had any idea who they had just messed with, they would have run a lot sooner. Because Max wasn't just a guide dog. He was a warrior. Lisa could feel her heart beating faster. She wasn't scared, not yet. But she was tense. She could feel the energy around her change. The air was heavy with something dark. The bikers weren't just teasing anymore. They wanted to push her. See how much they could get away with. She tightened her grip on Max's harness. He knew. Max had already read the situation. He could sense her unease, hear the shift in their voices, and smell the sweat of the man closest to her. Then, suddenly a rough, strong hand grabbed Lisa's arm. She sucked in a sharp breath. "Relax, we're just being friendly," the man said. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, his grip firm. Max froze. Lisa didn't need to see his face to know this man was smirking. She pulled back slightly. "Let go." Her voice was calm, steady. She had dealt with pushy people before. She wasn't some helpless woman who would just take it. But the man didn't move. Instead, he chuckled. A low, mocking sound. Lisa's fingers curled into a fist. Then. It happened so fast, Lisa almost didn't register it. 1 second, Max was still. The next, he was airborne. With a controlled, precise motion, Max twisted free from Lisa's grasp and lunged. His teeth snapped onto the biker's wrist, not hard enough to break skin, but tight enough to hurt. The man screamed. "What the?" His voice was high with shock. He stumbled back, nearly falling. Lisa heard the scraping of boots on pavement. The other bikers, who had been laughing before, were suddenly silent. Max didn't let go immediately. He held on just long enough to make a point. Then release. Max backed up, his body positioned firmly in front of Lisa. His growl was low, steady, like a warning siren before a storm. Lisa exhaled slowly. She reached down, running a hand over Max's head. He was ready for anything. Everything felt different now. The bikers who had been so full of confidence seconds ago were frozen. Lisa could feel their hesitation. Their breathing had changed. They weren't so sure anymore. The man Max had grabbed was still holding his wrist, staring at the dog like he'd just seen a ghost. "Dude, what the hell kind of dog is that?" one of them finally muttered. Lisa straightened her shoulders. Now it was her turn to speak. "You really don't want to mess with him," she said, her voice calm but firm. She paused, letting the moment hang. Then, she dropped the truth. "Max isn't just a guide dog. He's a trained SEAL canine." Silence. For a full 5 seconds, no one spoke. Then. "No way." One of the bikers, a younger guy with greasy blonde hair, let out a nervous laugh. "You're lying." Lisa just smiled slightly. "Try me." Max didn't move. But Lisa knew him. She could feel his focus. His training had never left him. He was reading every movement. Watching. Calculating. Max had once been part of a highly trained Navy SEAL K-9 unit. He had been on missions. He had faced danger. This was nothing compared to what he had seen before. Lisa took a slow step forward. The men didn't stop her this time. They were too busy staring at Max. "You're serious?" one of them finally asked. Lisa tilted her head. "You want to test him again?" The man with the skull tattoo shook his head quickly. "Hell no." Lisa held her ground. She could hear the uncertainty in their voices now. Just a minute ago, they thought she was weak. Now they weren't sure. One of them, the one Max had bitten, muttered, "It was just a joke, lady." Lisa let out a short laugh. Did it feel like a joke? No one answered. Max didn't move. He was still standing like a statue, muscles tight, ears forward, tail straight. Waiting. Protecting. A single command from Lisa, and he would end this right now. The bikers knew it. Finally, one of them muttered, "Let's just go, man." Lisa heard the shuffle of boots. The sound of nervous glances. The weight of a lost fight. And then the roar of a motorcycle engine. One by one, the bikers got onto their bikes. A moment later, they were gone. Lisa stood still for a few seconds, just listening to the sound of the motorcycles disappearing into the distance. Only when she was sure they were completely gone did she finally relax. She reached down, scratching Max behind his ears. The air was thick with tension. The leader of the bikers, a tall man with a skull tattoo on his arm, was still clutching his aching wrist. His fingers trembled slightly where Max had bitten him, but his pride was hurt even more than his hand. His eyes burned with anger as he glared at Lisa. "You expect us to be scared of a dog?" he spat. A few of the other bikers chuckled, trying to act tough, but their voices weren't as bold as before. Lisa stood still, calm. She didn't need to argue. She didn't need to convince them. Because Max was about to do that for her. For a single heartbeat, everything was still. Then Max moved. And when he moved, it was fast. Too fast for the bikers to react. In a blink, he had weaved between them, his body low and smooth like a shadow. One of the bikers reached out to grab him. Big mistake. Max twisted mid-run and swept his powerful body into the man's legs hard. Thud. The biker hit the ground with a heavy grunt. "What the?" another man yelped, stumbling backward. But Max wasn't done yet. Like a well-trained soldier, he pivoted and leaped toward another biker, not attacking, just pushing him off balance. The man staggered, tripping over his own feet and falling backward onto the pavement. The other bikers, who just seconds ago had been laughing and mocking, now stood stiff with wide eyes. And then Max barked. Not just any bark. A deep, sharp, commanding bark. It was not the bark of an ordinary dog. It was the bark of a warrior. The kind of sound that freezes a man in his tracks and sends chills down his spine. One of the bikers actually flinched. The leader, the man with the skull tattoo, didn't flinch. But Lisa heard his breathing change. She could tell. He was shaken. By now, passers-by had started gathering. Lisa could hear the murmurs, the gasps. Someone had called the police. The bikers, who had come here acting like they owned the world, were now the ones looking around nervously. They had picked the wrong person to mess with. And they knew it. Lisa took a slow step forward. Max stayed by her side, never breaking focus. The leader clenched his jaw. Lisa could hear his teeth grinding. He was embarrassed. Humiliated. His pride was shattered, and he hated it. She waited. Waited for him to make a choice. Finally. He spit on the ground. "Let's go." His voice was cold. Flat. But Lisa could hear the defeat in it. One by one, the bikers shuffled to their motorcycles. No more laughter. No more taunts. Just silence and the quiet hum of engines starting. Before they sped off, the leader looked at Lisa one last time. A look of pure hatred. But Lisa wasn't worried. Because he also looked at Max. And in his eyes, she saw something else, too. Fear. As the motorcycles roared away, Lisa let out a breath. She reached down, rubbing Max behind his ears. "You did good, buddy." Max let out a soft huff, his tail wagging just a little. Lisa smirked. She turned her head slightly in the direction the bikers had gone. "I told you," she murmured, just loud enough for anyone still listening. "You really don't want to mess with him." The deep roar of motorcycle engines faded into the distance. The gang of bikers was gone, their pride shattered, their confidence crushed. Lisa took a deep breath, feeling the tension leave her shoulders. Max, still standing tall beside her, gave a soft huff, his ears perked up, always alert. The sidewalk was no longer filled with fear. Instead, it was filled with something new, something powerful. Respect. People whispered. Some pointed at Max in amazement. Others just stood there, staring in awe. Then, a voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. We got multiple calls about a disturbance. Everything okay here? Lisa turned her head toward the voice. A police officer had arrived. He was tall, with a strong but kind face. His uniform was crisp, and his badge glinted under the sun. Lisa could hear the clinking of his utility belt as he stepped closer. Lisa smiled, kneeling down to scratch behind Max's ears. "Oh, we're just fine, officer," she said. "But you might want to check that security footage. It's quite the show." The officer chuckled, crossing his arms. "Security footage, huh?" he said, looking around. Lisa nodded toward the corner of the street. There, mounted on a tall metal pole, a security camera. It had captured everything. Every laugh. Every shove. Every insult. And, of course, every moment of Max putting those bikers in their place. The officer followed Lisa's gaze, then gave a slow nod. Well, he said. "Looks like someone's got some explaining to do." He turned to a second officer who had just arrived. "Pull the footage. I want every second of it." Lisa couldn't see it, but she could hear the officer smiling. "Navy SEAL K9, huh?" he said, looking down at Max. "Guess that explains a lot." Lisa nodded, patting Max's head gently. "He may be retired," she said with a small smirk, "but he's still got it." As the officer radioed for backup, the small crowd began to break apart. Some people walked away, shaking their heads in disbelief. Others stayed, talking excitedly about what they had just witnessed. A woman with a stroller smiled at Lisa. "That was amazing. I've never seen anything like it." Lisa chuckled. "Me neither," she admitted. "And I've known Max for years." A teenage boy, holding his skateboard under one arm, looked at Max with wide eyes. "That dog's a straight-up superhero," he said. Lisa grinned. "Yeah," she said. "I guess he is." The officer tapped his notepad, clearing his throat. "Lisa Dawson, right?" he asked. Lisa turned toward him, nodding. "That's me. Do you want to press charges?" he asked. Lisa thought about it. The bikers had been rude, cruel, aggressive. But Max had already served justice in his own way. Lisa shook her head. "No, officer," she said calmly. "Max took care of it." The officer let out a low whistle. "I believe it," he said. Within minutes, the second officer returned with a tablet in his hands. "Got the footage," he said. "It's all here." The first officer watched for a moment, then let out a laugh. "Oh, man. This is gold." Lisa tilted her head, curious. "What part are you watching?" "The part where Max drops that big guy like a sack of potatoes," the officer said, still chuckling. "I gotta say, that's some serious skill." Lisa smiled. "Yeah, he's got a few tricks up his sleeve." The officer nodded. "We'll keep this on record. Just in case those guys try anything again." Lisa reached down, feeling Max's fur under her fingertips. "They won't," she said softly. "Trust me." The officer studied her for a second, then nodded. "I believe you." As the officers wrapped up their report, Lisa heard the sound of a motorcycle returning. For a split second, she tensed. Max did too. His ears snapped forward, his muscles coiled like a spring. But then, a familiar voice. Softer this time. "Hey." Lisa turned her head. It was one of the bikers. Not the leader. Not the worst one. A younger man, maybe in his early 20s. He cleared his throat. I wanted to say sorry." Lisa stayed quiet. Waiting. The young man shifted his feet. We were just messing around. But I see now that, well, we shouldn't have. Lisa could hear the nervousness in his voice. She could hear the guilt. He wasn't proud of what had happened. Lisa took a deep breath. I appreciate you saying that. The young man hesitated. Then he said, that's some dog you've got. Lisa smiled, reaching down to stroke Max's head. Yeah, she said. He is. The young man nodded once, then slowly rode away. Lisa listened until the sound of his bike disappeared into the distance. She wasn't sure if the others would learn their lesson. But at least one of them had. And that was enough. Lisa turned back toward Max, scratching under his chin. Well, buddy, she said. Ready to go home? Max wagged his tail. Lisa smiled, adjusting her grip on his harness. The sidewalk was clear now. No more threats. No more danger. Just her, Max, and the open road ahead. As they walked away, Lisa could still hear the murmurs of awe from the people around her. But she didn't need their words. She didn't need their praise. Because she knew something they didn't. Max had done his job. And he always would. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the sidewalk as Lisa walked forward, her cane tapping lightly against the pavement. Max walked beside her, his posture calm yet alert. His tail wagged slightly, but his ears stayed perked up, always listening, always watching. The world around them buzzed with life again. The whispers in the crowd faded as people slowly returned to their own lives. But Lisa could still feel their stares. She could sense their curiosity, their amazement. They had just witnessed something incredible. A blind woman. A guide dog. And a lesson. Lisa took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp afternoon air. She had always known what people thought when they saw her. They assumed she was helpless. They assumed she was weak. They assumed she needed someone to save her. But today, the truth had been revealed. Lisa wasn't helpless. She wasn't weak. And she didn't need saving. She had Max. And Max was stronger than any of them could ever imagine. As Lisa and Max continued their walk, a little boy ran up to them. His mother followed close behind, worry on her face. The boy, no older than 7, pointed at Max with wide, excited eyes. Is he a superhero dog? He asked, his voice filled with awe. Lisa smiled. In a way, yes. The boy's mouth fell open. Whoa. His mother finally caught up, gently pulling him back. I'm so sorry, she said. He's just curious. Lisa chuckled. It's okay. A lot of people are curious about Max. The boy looked up at her. But, he looks like a normal dog. Lisa nodded. He does. Then she knelt beside Max and ran a gentle hand over his fur. But sometimes, the ones who look normal are the most powerful of all. The boy thought about this for a moment. Then he grinned. That's cool. His mother smiled at Lisa. Thank you for that, she said softly. Lisa nodded. No problem. As the mother and son walked away, Lisa stood back up, gripping Max's harness. Lisa had met people like those bikers before. People who thought strength meant being loud. Being aggressive. Being bigger and scarier than everyone else. But today, those same men had learned a different kind of strength. A quiet strength. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind that doesn't need to show off. The kind that waits. Watches. Protects. Lisa reached down, giving Max a small pat. You did good today, buddy. Max wagged his tail, letting out a small, happy huff. A woman passing by smiled at Lisa. That dog of yours is a real hero. Lisa turned toward the voice and smiled back. Yeah, she said softly. He really is. The woman nodded, then continued on her way. Lisa didn't need to see her face to know what she was thinking. She was rethinking everything she thought she knew. About blind people. About guide dogs. About strength. Lisa and Max kept walking. The world kept moving. But one thing was certain. Today had changed things. Lisa knew that there would always be people like those bikers. People who judge too quickly. People who think they know everything about someone just by looking at them. People who see differences and assume they mean weakness. But today was proof of something else. Appearances mean nothing. True strength isn't about what you can see. It's about what's inside. The heart. The courage. The loyalty. And sometimes, the ones you think are the weakest, are the strongest of all. Lisa tilted her face toward the sky. The sun was warm. The breeze was light. Max walked proudly beside her, his job done for the day. But Lisa knew this wouldn't be the last time someone underestimated them. And she knew that the next time it happened, Max would be ready. Because that's what heroes do. And as for those who go looking for trouble, they may just find more than they can handle.